Carolyn Dube here. Oh, what's the play for today? Well, today it's an I change my mind kind of day. Every time I think I have a plan, it completely changes. And what I'm doing today is I'm making a reminder for me for the word or words actually that I picked for this year. So to help me remember these words, because if I don't do something like this, I actually forget what they are by the end of January. But if I make a piece of art using the words, then I actually remember them well past that. So my memory aid is what I'm making here today, and I'm going to be changing my mind along the way. Oh, and be sure to watch for the oops that happens because this is something that might happen to you, and you'll see how I handle it, and that may help you if you ever get in that pickle. I'm starting out here with some mulberry paper. And mulberry paper is kind of like tissue paper in that it's translucent, but it's a little bit sturdier and heavier. I would show you the whole big sheet of this at once, except it doesn't fit on the camera here. It comes in these big, larger than poster size pieces, but as you can see, the paper tears really easily. And what I want to do is put a word inside each one of these, so I only need a few of these off of the page. But that was the plan that I started with. As I looked at this, I thought, no, not just a whole word in there, I want to put just a letter in there. So that means I'm going to need a bunch more of these. Some of these came apart perfectly, and some of them not so much. Some of the circles were broken as I was doing this, but those I saved because those turned out to be an oops, a great opportunity presenting suddenly that you'll see near the end of the video. And if you're wondering where you can get mulberry sheets like this, I'll have a link down below for you, so if you want to check that out, it's there for you. Once I've got a nice big pile of these, I'm ready to start getting the letters on there. I chose my Feelings and Emotions alphabet stencil from over at Stencil Go products because the letters were just the right size to fit inside of these circles. So I've got a bit of black paint there on a cosmetic sponge, and then it's just time to start stenciling away. Now mulberry paper, because it's translucent, also means that paint can go through it. So that's why you'll see me moving around to different parts of the cardboard as I'm doing this, so I don't let any of the wet paint that's on the cardboard end up on the next one. Now that you're seeing letters being stenciled here, you might be wondering, well, what are the words that you're creating? Well, there are 4 of them that I'm creating, and at the beginning of each year, I like to pick that word that sort of sets the intention, the theme, the flavor for the year. I had it down to 15 to choose from, and well, I'm not doing a paragraph for the year, I'll do a word for the year. And I still couldn't get it down to that one, and I was thinking and thinking about it, and I decided, you know what? I'm not just going to go with one, I'm going to go with several of them. So I picked 4 of them that could make a phrase, and I would like to tell you that I carefully chose these words, but it's more like I let them choose me, because they were the 4 that I could put together in a phrase that resonated with me. These 4 words, well, it's not completely clear to me exactly what they mean or what it's going to lead me towards this year, but that's part of the fun of it, right? Oh, and I guess I should tell you what those 4 words are. They are adventures, exploring, curious boundaries. And again, I'm not totally sure exactly what it means, what kind of adventures, what kind of boundaries, but the fun of it this year will be me figuring out how this applies to the year. On the years where I've chosen one word, those are sometimes hard for me to remember later in the year, like February. So if I've got 4, I've really got to help myself out. And I'm going to put these onto a canvas so that I can see them every time I'm in the studio, so it will remind me of these 4 words that are going to guide me through the year. But before I can put it on the wall, I got to get this on a canvas. And as I'm doing the letters here, I'm thinking, oh, I've got like a 14 by 11 size I think would be just right for this. Yeah, you'll see that that's not going to happen because these letters, as big as these words are, will not fit on an 11 by 14. I'm going to have to go a little bit bigger. While I was going back and looking through the studio for a blank canvas to put these on, I decided to change my mind when I saw this one and I realized how the circles on it would go with the circles, with the black circles and the letters. And I thought, know what? I'm going to put another layer on top of this. But I'm going to run into a little bit of a challenge here because I thought this canvas was done. So there's something that I did on the top layer of it that I often do as a top layer on something that's going to cause a problem for me when I start gluing these on. I've moved 3 of the words down, so I've just got the one that I'm going to be working on so I can get the positioning right as I'm gluing it down. I've got a really runny glue called Fluid Matte Medium, And by the way, any really runny glue will do this. It just has to be really, really runny and fluid. Before I start gluing, I make sure I've got the positioning the way I want it and that I've spelled it correctly. I am actually checking my spelling about 6 different times here because I am notorious for misspelling words even after I check them. So fingers crossed I've got the words in the correct, or the letters in the correct order. So I've got my fluid matte medium here, that runny glue, and all I'm going to do is move one letter, put the glue down, and then put the letter down. Except as I do this, I realize, wow, everything's really dark, a lot darker than I expected. And that's because of something that was already on the canvas. I had used a Stabilo pencil to do a lot of the scribbling on top here as the last layer, because Stabilo pencils are really, really water reactive. So what that means is if something gets them wet, they turn very, very black and almost like having a black ink on there. Well, I'd done this like years ago, and yep, that stuff will still react to water. It'll still react to the glue because it was the top layer on a canvas that I thought was finished. So what I'm doing now is taking a baby wipe, or you can use a damp paper towel, anything like that, and I'm going over all of the areas where I can see that Stabilo pencil to get that stuff up. Things might look a little extra cloudy or gray on the top of the canvas, and that just means I'm smearing that black Stabilo around. But as I keep using different sides of the baby wipe or a fresh paper towel kind of thing, if I get it wet, I'll be able to keep pulling that stuff up so that I can actually just remove that and not end up with all that gray ghosting. See how gray it looks there from that? That'll all come up as long as I put something damp on it, or just squirt it with a whole bunch of water if you're feeling impatient, and then wipe it up. Not every single speck of the Stabilo pencil is actually going to come up. If I look closely at it, I can actually see some areas where it's still there. And that doesn't bother me as long as it doesn't smear and turn into this cloudy gray thing. That's all I really care about. Oh, and by the way, as soon as this happened with the A, I kind of moved pretty quickly to get it wiped up, because if the Stabilo mixes in with the matte medium and it were to dry, it would not be able to be wiped off this easily. So I wanted to make sure I got that up and then prevented it from getting in the way of any of the other. The opportunity in this oops is 2 things. One, this A that I had to replace because it now has that gray and the glue on it that's hardened. That'll go into my stash and it'll get used in some future project, and I never would have had that without this oops. And then the other thing is I get to show you what to do if this kind of thing ever happens to you. Now it's time to give that fluid matte medium another try and get these letters stuck on here. I'm being very generous with the amount of fluid matte medium that I'm using because I want a lot of it to really soak into that mulberry paper. And I'm going over the top of it just to make sure that I fully got it encased in that. As I'm gluing these down, you will see proof as to why you never want me to be your neurosurgeon. Now, not that that was ever something you were really thinking about doing with me, since I have absolutely no medical training, but it's more of how my hand bumps into things. You see, this is mulberry paper, and when it gets wet from the glue, it gets really soft, which is great in some ways, but not so great when you're trying to hold something as a circle or the shape that it is. And sometimes I don't even notice when I've done it, like I did with that T up there. But eventually I'll notice it and get it straightened back out. And that's one of those nice things about working with a really wet glue, is it does give you some time to go back and fix stuff that you might have missed that really look obvious when you look at it now. But anyway. Now these are the words that I chose for this year. And I'm wondering, do you choose a word for the year? And if you have, what is your word that you're going with? I'd love to know, so let me know in the comments. If you've seen many of my videos, you've probably heard me talk about how impatient I am. And gluing all of these letters on here, well, that was using up what I thought was all of the patience that I had. And as I was getting near the end of this word, I was like, I just want to be done gluing these little black circles on. And then about the time I got to the end of it, I completely changed my mind because I saw one of the pieces sitting off to the side. And that gave me an idea of something else I could do with these black circles on the canvas. What I wanted was just the black circle with none of the paper behind it. And I found that if I worked carefully, I could actually remove it from the backing, and so I'd have these really thin black circles. Now, remember a moment ago I said I was tired of gluing these things on? If I thought it was challenging to glue them on with the mulberry paper in the center, yeah, well, that's going to become even more challenging without that. But I've got this idea that I really want to try, so what the heck, I'm going to go for it. As I started to glue just the black circles down here, I completely thought my muse was just toying with me. She gave me this idea, said, "Oh, this will be awesome, try this," just to watch me try and glue this thing down, to just try and make it be a circle, because this is not going nearly as smoothly as what I'd anticipated. It might not be graceful to watch here, but by golly, I will get these things on here and I will make them look somewhat round. The good news is none of these were ever perfectly round, so that does take that pressure off. But I've got one down there, so that means I can get the rest of them. One of the things to make sure is to not touch the one you just glued down, and also to use ample amounts of that matte medium so you've got a lot of stuff to work with so that it can really stick in there. You may find this revolutionary, but the more that you try something, the easier that it gets. As difficult as that first one was for me, the rest of them did get easier. It's like practicing something or repeating something makes a difference in how well you can do it. I thought maybe if I left some open areas with it, it would look really artsy and cool and I wouldn't have to do more of them. But in the end, I filled the entire thing in with those black circles. And here's what it looks like completely dry. This is nothing like what I expected was going to happen when I started the play, but hey, it's play. We're allowed to change our minds, right? Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new one out. And of course, if you want more play, more fun, check it all out over on my website at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.